Friends, welcome back. Last class we were discussing about threshold limits of registration, and we have understood that aggregate turnover is relevant for the purpose of registration. Let me share the screen with you right now. So what we have discussed here is that this thing. Yeah, for a normal state, that means other than the special category states, if the turnover doesn't exceed 40 lakh rupees, then one need not go for registration. Registration is required if the person is supplying goods and the turnover is exceeding 40 lakh rupees, right? And for the normal state, for supply of services, the threshold limit is 20 lakh rupees. In the previous class, we were discussing about all these things. And for a special category states, it is 10 lakh rupees. Now, we'll summarize all these things. And before that summarization, let us understand that there are certain situations and certain exceptions to the exemption limit of 40 lakh rupees. That means in this case, even when the turnover has not crossed 40 lakh rupees, registrations are required. So up to 40 lakh rupees of supply of goods, there is an exemption for normal state. But this is an exception to that exemption. This means registration is required. What are these exceptions? We will see. First one, persons required to make compulsory registration under section 24 of CGST. This is again a separate thing when we will be seeing that compulsorily registration is required. So if section 24 applies and compulsory registration is required, then this exemption limit of 40 lakh will not be applicable. Second thing is that person engaged in making supplies of ice cream and other edible rice or other edible ice, whether or not containing cocoa, they are required to after registration irrespective of turnover. Next is the pan masala. If someone is supplying pan masala and other goods in chapter 24, that is tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes, then also this exemption up to 40 lakh is not applicable. Then persons engaged in making intrastate supplies in the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Telangana, etc., where the limit, there also they are exempted. So this exception doesn't apply. Right? Interstate supply of the goods are nevertheless liable for compulsory registration and already covered in exception above. Then persons who have opted for voluntary registration or such registered person was intended to continue with the registration of the CGST Act. If someone is voluntarily opting for registration, then also the exemption limit will not apply. Right. So these are certain exceptions to the exemption limit. Now, considering all these things, if you summarize now, this is the, you can say, this is the summarized forms of threshold limit. First, you see, we are talking about special category of states. First part, these two things you're talking about the states other than special category. Then we'll be talking about the special category states as per constitution. Then you see under GST law, these are the 4 states which are only special category states under section 22. Special category states under GST law means Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Manipur. But in constitution, there are some other special category states. Others, total 11 special category states are there. So others means, let's say, Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, etc. These limits are different. Now, please have a look at this threshold limit. For Puducherry, first we are talking about states other than special category states. For Puducherry, for goods, threshold limit is 20. For services, threshold limit is also 20. For Telangana, threshold limit is 20 for goods. And for services, it is for 20. Okay, for Puducherry and Telangana, you have seen that irrespective of goods or services, the threshold limit is 20 lakh. Now, for other states means other states other than special category states. For example, the state of Odisha. For goods, what is the limit? What is the threshold limit?
40 lakhs.
40 lakh. And for services?
20 lakhs.
For West Bengal? Same 40 lakh, 20 lakh. For Bihar, same 40 lakh, 40 lakh. Okay, so we are now talking about states other than special category states. But here, Puducherry and Telangana have exceptions. Puducherry has the for goods, it is 20 lakh. For Telangana, it's also. But for all other states, it is 40 lakh for goods and 20 lakh for services. And for special category states, like the special category states as per section 22 for Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. For goods as well as for services, the threshold limit is 10 lakh. Okay. And for other states means these are also special category states as per constitution, but not as per section 22. Like for Jammu and Kashmir, for goods it is 40 lakh. For services, it is 20 lakh. For Assam, for goods, it is 40 lakh. For services, it is 20 lakh. For Himachal, for goods, it is 40 lakh. For services, it is 20 lakh. Okay. Right. So what I have understood, Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, and Himachal. Now, for other states means other special category states like Arunachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand. You are finding the limits at 20 lakh in both the cases, goods as well as services. So now you have understood this limit varies from state to state. Okay. For Arunachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand, for goods, the limit is 20 lakh. For services, also limit is 20 lakh. Did you understand? Okay. Therefore, in this paragraph, what we're saying for Arunachal, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Sikkim, the threshold limit is 20 lakh. For Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur, Tripura, threshold limit is 10 lakh. For a normal state, it is 40 lakh for goods and 20 lakh for services. But for Puducherry and Telangana, it is 20 lakh for both things, for both goods as well as services. Okay. Now, you can have once again have a look at these states. States with threshold limit of 10 lakh, both for goods and services, are Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland. States with threshold limit of 20 lakh for goods and services are Arunachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, and Telangana. States with threshold limit of 20 lakh for services and 40 lakh for goods are Jammu, Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, and other states. And when I say Jammu Kashmir, I mean Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Union Territory of Ladakh. Okay. Did you understand? Now, if that is what I have remembered, once again, you can have a look at this slide. Now we'll be doing some exercises. You have to reply with me. Now, just have a look at this slide. Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, 10. Jammu, Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, and all other states, 20 for services, 40 for goods, and for states of Arunachal, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana, 20 for both goods and services. Now, here is a question which I'm going to ask you. Mr. X of Assam is exclusively engaged in intrastate supply of foods. His aggregate turnover in the financial year is 22 lakh. Tell me whether he is required to go for registration or not. We are talking about state of Assam. Now, if you want, I can show you the slide again. Assam. Aggregate turnover is 22 lakh for supply of shoes. Whether he is required for registration?
No, sir.
You feel no? Why you are saying no?
Sir, because the for the supply of goods, the threshold limit is 40 lakhs.
Okay.
And for the
And he is engaged only in supply of goods, that is shoes, right? So he is not liable to get himself registered. Now, the second question I'm asking him is that in the above example, other things remaining same, Mr. X is exclusively engaged in supply of pan masala instead of shoes. What do you say? Now I'm showing you the relevant slide now. Okay, this is the slide which talks about exceptions for exemption. Exemption means exemption of 40 lakh. Here you have seen these are the exceptions. First, for making supplies of ice cream, edible ice, pan masala, tobacco, and manufactured tobacco substitutes. And here the question I'm asking you is that it is not shoe, it is now pan masala. What do you say?
So they have to
They have to register, that is so. Okay. Okay. Now in this case, what will happen? He will not be eligible for higher threshold limit of 40 lakh. The applicable threshold limit for registration in that case will be 20 lakh. Thus, Mr. X will be liable for registration with GST. Okay. Okay, are you getting it? Once again, you look at this slide. These are the exception things. Hope you have understood this. Now, should I move to the next question?
Yes.
Okay. Did you understand? Here, limit is not 40 lakh, it will be 20 lakh. Now,
One out. Like if a person the same example in place of 22 lakh, if it will be 18 lakhs,
not
then
then it's not eligible.
but sir, like it is an product like if we'll see in some examples of some products like aerated water, ice cream, these are not comes under like they don't have any what like they have to pay some amount like what whether they are crossing the limits or not.
No. I'm not getting exactly the question. Maybe you are talking about some other scheme like composition scheme, etc., where they have to pay a flat amount, flat charge. That's a different thing. But for now, we are talking about that is the exemption limit for registration. Okay. And in that context, we have discussed the basic limit is 20 lakh, which has been increased to 40 lakh in certain cases in respect of goods. But there are exceptions to this increase of 40 lakh rupees, right? And these are the exceptions. Okay. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Now, in third question, instead of pan masala or shoes, X is exclusively engaged in supply of taxable services. Now tell me whether he's supposed to register himself. And you know the taxable value is now 22 lakh. And it's not supply of goods, it is supply of services.
Yes, sir. Like, so it has to like be registered.
Yes, because the threshold limit for registration still be 20 lakh. X will be liable for registration. Now, next one more question I'm adding to that. If Mr. X is engaged in supply of both taxable goods and services, what would be your answer?
Yes, sir. It should be like
Same answer. Still is liable for registration. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Now, here is one more set of questions. Person engaged exclusively in interstate supply of goods. Now you see, Mr. S of Telangana is exclusively engaged in interstate supply of toys. Which state I am talking about? Telangana. I think you have remembered the threshold limit of Telangana. The aggregate turnover in the current financial year is 22 lakh. Whether he is going to get himself registered, get herself registered.
yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
yes, because the limit is
20 lakhs.
20 lakh in case of Telangana. Okay, he will not be eligible for higher threshold limit in case of exclusively supply of goods. The threshold limit for registration in the given case is 20 lakh, thus he is liable for registration. Now, other things remaining same. If Mr. S is exclusively engaged in supply of taxable services instead of toys, it's not toys, it is services. Whether he is supposed to get himself registered,
Yes, sir.
still is, because for Telangana for both services as well as goods, the limit is 20. And if Mr. S is engaged for supply of both goods and services, whether he is liable for registration,
Yes, I have.
yes, still yes. Okay, liable for registration with the limit is 20. Okay, let us do one more question. Person engaged exclusively in interstate supply of goods. Again, we will see. A of Manipur exclusively engaged in interstate supply of pepper. The aggregate turnover in the financial year is 12 lakh.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh, like register.
Yes, because for Manipur, what is the aggregate turnover limit?
10 lakhs.
10 lakh. So he is liable to get himself registered. Okay. Now, in the above example, if other things remaining same, say is exclusively engaged in supply of taxable services instead of toys, instead of paper.
Here also, yes, sir. Yes.
Again, is threshold limit is still 10 lakh rupees. And if he will be engaged in both goods as well as services,
Then also.
then also, okay, threshold limit is 10 lakh. Okay. Now, Mr. R of Assam exclusively engaged in interstate supply of ready-made garments. If the turnover in the current financial year for Assam showroom is 28 lakh, for another showroom at Tripura, their turnover is 11. What do you think? Whether he should get himself registered or not?
Yes, sir.
Why you are saying yes?
So because like in case of Assam, the limit was like for goods it is 40 lakhs, but in case of Tripura it is like 10 lakhs. So
Yes,
if
you
we
have to
add,
go for the Tripura limit here, right? Right. So one of the state is special, one of the place of business is in special category state. So you have to refer to the threshold limit of Tripura, reduced to 10 lakhs. So therefore, Mr. R is liable to get himself registered both in Assam as well as in Tripura. Friends, please remember that person is required to obtain registration with respect to his each place of business in India from where taxable supplies are made. However, a supplier is not liable to obtain registration in a state or union territory from where he makes exempt or non-taxable. Suppose someone is making some exempted supplies from a state or making some supplies which are not taxable. Then in that state, he did not get himself registered. Are you getting? Otherwise, with respect to each place of business, they need to get himself registered. Let us see this example. Excel Enterprise is engaged in supply of taxable goods in Maharashtra. He also supplies alcoholic liquor for human consumption from Nagaland. This alcoholic liquor from human consumption is out of the scope of GST as of now. Its turnover in the current financial year is 34 lakh in Maharashtra and 8 lakh in Nagaland. Okay, here you have to understand that this particular enterprise is exclusively engaged in making taxable supplies of goods and services in Maharashtra. And the applicable threshold limit for obtaining registration is 40 lakh. Okay. However, the threshold limit will not be reduced to 10 lakh in case of supply of alcohol for human consumption from Nagaland. Right? It will not be reduced to 10 lakh. Why it will not be reduced to 10 lakh? Because he is making non-taxable supplies from Nagaland. So here the limit is still 40. Okay. Did you understand this point?
No, sir, can you just repeat it?
Right? So normally in the earlier example we have seen, you see, if one of the state is a special category state, then normally what will happen? The 10 lakh will be taken as the threshold limit. But if in the special category state, he is supplying some exempted supplies or something supplies on which GST is not payable, then that will not be taken. That limit will not be taken. In this case, threshold limit for obtaining registration. This threshold limit will not be reduced to 10 lakh rupees in case he is supplying alcoholic liquor for human consumption for Nagaland. Okay, because they are not taxable supplies. In this case, aggregate turnover of Excel Enterprise exceeds the applicable threshold limit of 40 lakh. Because when you calculate the amount, in amount, aggregate turnover will be included. Exempted turnover will be included. So aggregate turnover means 34 lakh plus 8 lakh. So it comes to 42 lakh. And what is the limit? Limit is 40 lakh. So he is liable for registration. Are you getting it? Now, next question you might be thinking, where from he should obtain registration? He should obtain for registration from Maharashtra. He is not required to obtain registration from Nagaland because he is not making any taxable supplies from Nagaland. Okay. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
So for aggregate turnover, exempted supplies, export turnover, all these things will be in order to arrive at the amount of aggregate. Right. Okay. And if your business is one is a normal state, another is a special category state, and for both the cases you are making taxable supplies, then your limit will be as per the limit which is applicable to the special category state within 10 lakh. But from the special category state, you are only making some exempted supplies. Then your threshold limit will not be reduced to 10 lakh rupees. It will continue to be 40 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees as the case may be. Hope you have understood this concept. Yes or no? Now we are moving to a new concept. Once it is clear to us, this is about the person liable for registration in case of transfer of business. When business is transferred, whether on account of succession or maybe for other reasons. Okay, maybe change of ownership happens through death of the sole proprietor, and business is transferred to other person as a going concern. The transfer successor needs to register himself. That concept we know, we have discussed it earlier also. And where the business is transferred in pursuant to sanction of a scheme of arrangement or amalgamation or demerger. Okay, in that case also, the transferee need to obtain registration. Both the things we know, we have already discussed this thing. Now, friends, there are certain situations and earlier cases also you've seen where this concept is applicable, that is compulsory registration. In which situation compulsorily you have to get yourself registered. So this is discussed in section 24. There are certain situations where compulsory registrations are relevant. We'll come to that. What is compulsory registration? In the meantime, what we'll do? You see, the purpose of learning this law is that once you know the registration is required, registration is to be done, then we should be able to do a registration. We should be able to register ourselves or register a particular taxable person. How to get oneself registered? Let me take you to the GST website right now to give you a basic understanding how a person can get himself registered. Just give me a moment. Let me take you to the site. Yeah, now I have opened this site. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. So now you see registration process we are learning. There are a few more things we have to learn. That is one thing. Now let us come to practicalities of GST registration. Okay, what is composition scheme? How can I opt composition scheme? These are different things we'll be learning. But now you see, how do I register with GST? Are you able to see this link? Okay, here there is also a link, register now. I will take you to this link in maybe in the next class. You'll be able to see how to get himself registered. But now I expect you to go through this place. How do I register with GST? You can click here. You can understand the step-by-step process. Are you getting it? Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all of you should visit to this website, gst.gov.in, and visit here. Once again, let me show you from the very beginning. This is the home page, gst.gov.in. And we are learning law relating to registration. But once we know registration is required, then we should be able to get ourselves registered. How do I register? These are the step-by-step processes are here. One can read it. First thing is that you see apply for registration. Okay, so there is a form you see. Normal taxpayer, composition scheme, casual, this CTP, the input tax district, there are different things. So let us think about the normal taxpayer. Will understand how one can register. Okay, applying for registration, part one of the application. You see, you just manual is there. Frequently asked questions are here. You doubt about registration. Okay, one can have a look at this. And you will be learning all these things in detail. Okay, are you able to see it? Now you see there are videos also how to apply for GST registration. You just manual is also there. Okay, here you see, here also step-by-step process is explained to you. New registration page is displayed step by step. As you can see, these are the data. You have to fill it up. I am a taxpayer, state, district. Okay, your PAN. Then you can proceed. After that, you'll be getting one reference number. By using that, you can fill up various other data. You will be getting one mobile OTP and email OTP. Okay, you will be getting one temporary reference number. By using that, you can proceed. After this, that the verification will be completed. Then you will get a form where you have to fill up these details: business details, promoters, partners detail, authorized secretary detail, authorized representative details. Like this, you have to fill it up one by one. You have to fill it up. When the final form you fill up, then verify. You can upload. Then your registration process will be completed. Hope you got some basic idea. I will be expecting you to go through this. Practically, we'll be doing it in the class, and you are supposed to do a project of that also. But before that, please familiarize yourself. Please visit to that place, understand how registration will happen. And legal provisions, to some extent, you know, few other provisions also we are going to learn right now. Now, let us see who are the persons who are required to compulsorily get themselves registered. Okay, and this is dealt in section 24 of CGST Act. First of all, you see persons making interstate taxable supplies. The threshold limit of 20 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees in case of special category states of Manipur, special category states of Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, and Nagaland. So if the person is making some interstate supplies and the threshold limit is exceeding, or the limit is exceeding 20 lakh rupees or 10 lakh rupees in case of special category state, then he has to compulsorily get himself registered. Okay. Next is casual taxable persons. If they are making taxable supplies, however, the threshold limit is again 20 lakh rupees and 10 lakh rupees for special category states. Who are these CTPs, that casual taxable persons? I'll be telling you shortly. Then person required to pay tax under reverse charge. If you have to pay tax on reverse charge mechanism, then also you have to get himself registered. The non-resident taxable persons or NRTPs, they are also liable for compulsory registration. Okay, right? These 4 points you have understood. Persons who are making interstate taxable supplies, if the aggregate turnover crosses the threshold limit. Casual persons, persons who are required to pay tax under RCA, and NRTPs, non-resident taxable persons. Now, point fifth is the e-commerce operators. Every e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source, he has to get registered. Person who supplies goods and services other than the supply specified under section 9(5) through such e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under section 52, but threshold limit of 20 lakh is applicable, and the threshold limit is 10 lakh for special category state. Okay, is available in case of supplier supplying services through issue. So issue, or if the issue stands for electronic commerce operator or e-commerce operator, they also required to get themselves registered. Then persons who are required to deduct tax at source under section 51 GST TDS, if they are required to deduct tax they are also required to go for compulsory registration. Person who makes taxable supply of goods and services are both on behalf of other taxable persons, whether as an agent or otherwise. If someone is supplying goods, services, or both on behalf of others as an agent, they are also required to get themselves registered under compulsory registration. Input service distributors, then every person supplying online information and database access or retrieval, that is called OIDAR, online information and database access or retrieval services. They have to also compulsorily get themselves registered. Persons who are required to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism, and such persons and class of persons as may be notified by the government on recommendation of council. So these are almost, you see, 11 category of persons who are required to get themselves compulsorily registered under GST law. Persons making interstate supplies, right? For which, of course, there is a threshold limit of 20 lakh and 10 lakh in case of interstate supply of services. And casual taxable persons, there is also threshold limit. Then who are required to pay tax on reverse charge mechanism. Then non-resident taxable persons. E-commerce operators who are required to deduct tax on section 51. Who make taxable services on behalf of others. Input service distributors. Then OIDAR, that is online information and database access or retrieval services. Then also persons who pay tax on reverse charge mechanism under section 9(5) and such other classes of persons who are required to, as may be notified by the center. All of them are required to compulsorily get themselves registered. Now, to understand that thing, we need to first of all understand meaning of who is a casual taxable person. This means a person who occasionally undertakes transactions involving supply of goods and services, both in the course or furtherance of business, whether as principal or agent or in any other capacity in the state or union territory when he has no fixed place of business. That means casually, that means once in a while, let us say he has undertaken some supply of goods and services, then that person can be a casual taxable person. There is no regularity in his business. And who is a non-resident taxable person? Who is occasionally undertakes the transactions involving supply of goods and services, are both whether as a principal or agent in any other capacity, but who has no fixed place of business or residence in India. The non-resident taxable person means that person has no fixed place of business or no residence. Okay, and also we need to understand what is the meaning of distinct entity or distinct person. You also know this thing, a person having multiple business verticals can obtain separate registrations for each business in a state. When two units of same business have different registration, they will be considered as different entity or different persons. So if some person is having two registrations in a state, then in respect of each one of them, the other business will be considered as a distinct person. So this concept, you know. Now, if you look at this chart, you can broadly understand that compulsory registration is required in these cases when turnover exceeds limit. Okay, whether at second, if someone is already registered under existing law, then someone is making interstate supplies, taxable supplies, casual taxable persons, person liable to pay tax under reverse charge, input service distributors, then non-resident taxable persons, Then persons required to deduct TDS under section 51. Then agents, etc., making taxable supply on behalf of other taxable persons, e-commerce operators. Tax and notified intrastate services by e-commerce operators. Persons supply goods or services through e-commerce operators. Supplying online information and database access and travel services from outside India. Other persons or class or persons as may be notified by central government. Transferring to register when the business is carried on by the registered person is transferred. Transferring in case of amalgamation, merger, demerger, etc. In all these cases, one may go for compulsory registration. But apart from registration, if somebody wants, he can also go for voluntary registration. That also one can. So this is the overall picture that in which case compulsory registration is required. Hope we have understood broadly this thing. There are a lot of advantages of getting registered. First of all, the person will be legally recognized as supplier of goods and services. He will be legally authorized to collect tax from the customers. And he will be able to pass credit of taxes paid on goods and services to the purchasers and recipients. He can claim input tax credit. In this process, there will be seamless flow of input tax credit from supplier to recipient at a national level. At every stage that will flow. So that is the advantages of registration. We are also going to learn one more concept that who are not liable for registration, which is dealt in section 23. First one, persons engaged exclusively in the business of supplying goods and services. Not liable for tax or wholly exempt from tax, they need not get themselves registered. Okay, exclusively they are engaged in the business on which they are not liable to pay tax or it is wholly exempted from tax. Okay, for example, MP Oil is exclusively engaged in supplying petrol, since petrol is as of now is out of the purview of GST. The supplier of petrol is not liable for GST. Therefore, he need not get himself registered. It is fully exempted. Okay. Similarly, another entity which is exclusively engaged in charitable activities, it also need not get himself registered. Okay, if he's registered under section 12A of the Income Tax Act, the GST law provides that those services are exempt. Consequently, he need not get himself registered. For example, one more thing, Prime Minister's Foundation is also not Prime Minister's Foundation, any other foundation who is engaged exclusively for charitable activities and who are having registration under section 12AA of Income Tax Act 1960. Then they are not liable for registration. An agriculturalist, to the extent the supply produced out of cultivation of land, he is also not liable for registration. But what is the meaning of this produce out of cultivation of land? That means he must have produced by using his own labor or by the labor of the family or servant and wages. So through this process, if he has produced out of cultivation of land, then agriculturalist need not get himself registered. Okay. Here is an example. P is an agriculturalist engaged in cultivation of rice in the field of the state of Odisha. He was exclusively engaged in supply of rice cultivated in his own field in the previous year. Thus, he is not eligible for registration, as he was exclusively engaged in supply of produce out of cultivation of land. In the current year, he decides to start trading in dal apart from supplying rice. His current year turnover is 32 lakhs from supply of rice and 9 lakh from trading of dal. Now you see, the moment he is doing dal, that he is no more exclusively engaged in agricultural activity. And his total turnover, you can see 32 lakh plus 9 lakh, it comes to how much? 31 lakh. And in the state of Odisha, the threshold limit is 40 lakh. Okay. Therefore, in this situation, what he has to do? He is liable for registration. Okay. Because when you're talking about turnover for this thing, aggregate turnover limit, we have to include all this exempted turnover also. So 9 lakh is the turnover, plus this agricultural turnover will also be included. Now, specified category of persons notified by the government exempted from obtaining registrations. So this is what we'll see. Person who are only engaged in making supplies of taxable goods and services, or the total tax on which is liable to be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient. If this is a situation when the person is making some supplies and his supplies are liable for RCM, reverse charge basis, that means he need not deposit tax with government. The recipient is supposed to deposit tax. In that case, he is exempted from obtaining registration. Okay, so this is one more exemption because his supplies are liable for reverse charge. For example, MN Transport is a goods transport agency engaged exclusively in providing goods transport services under reverse charge. Okay. Now, he is exempted from registration because he is exclusively providing a services which is liable for goods transport, is liable for reverse charge. So he need not get himself registered. Then specified category of persons notified by government exempted from registration, what we are learning, the persons making interstate supplies of taxable services up to 20 lakh rupees. Okay, interstate supplies, if someone is making, he has to compulsorily get himself registered. But in case it is the interstate supply of services, not goods, then up to 20 lakh it is exempt. That means one need not obtain registration if his service turn from interstate supply is within 10 lakh, only within 20 lakh. I repeat, a person making interstate supplies of taxable services and having aggregate turnover to be computed on all India basis, if it's not exceeding 20 lakh rupees in a financial year, is exempted from obtaining compulsory registration. That 20 lakh rupees will be reduced to 10 lakh in the special category states of Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, and Nagaland. Mind you, this is only for services, not for goods. Let us see an example. DL and company located in Delhi engaged in supply of taxable goods to neighboring states of Punjab and Haryana. Its aggregate turnover in the franchise is 10 lakh rupees. Since it is engaged in making interstate supply of goods and goods, it is required to obtain registration mandatory because it is in interstate supply. Okay, when it's interstate supply, the turnover limit doesn't apply. Interstate supply of goods, he has to get himself registered. However, in the above case, if DL and Co is engaged in interstate supply of services instead of goods, then they are not liable to be registered because for interstate supply of services, the limit is 20 lakh. And since it is not exceeding 20 lakh, they need not obtain registration. The persons making interstate taxable supplies of notified handicraft goods up to rupees 20 lakh, they are also exempted. But it should be notified handicraft goods. Okay, then the turnover limit is 20 lakh rupees, but 10 lakh rupees for special category students. But such person have obtained a PAN and have generated e-way bill. So when they are making interstate supplies, they should make e-way bill. This is one more example. Certain notified supplies are there, like some examples are there. Government's notification is there. You can have a look at this thing. Handicrafted candles, articles made of paper, okay, coir articles, handbags, pouches, etc. These are the examples of handicrafted. So example, HZ Private Limited, located in Madhya Pradesh, is in the supply of notified handicraft goods, and these goods are supplied to the neighboring states. Aggregate turnover is 15 lakh, and since they are engaged in making interstate supplies of taxable goods, they are still not liable to after registration because these are exempted handicraft goods. But if it exceeds 20 lakh rupees, then they have to get themselves registered. Then casual taxable persons making interstate supplies of notified handicrafted goods up to 20 lakh rupees is exempted. But there are certain conditions that has to be complied with. The aggregate value of supplies to be computed on all India basis. It doesn't exceed 20 lakh rupees. For special category states, it is 10 lakh rupees. Like this condition has to be complied with. Now, friends, broadly we have understood there are some categories of people where compulsory registration is not required. Okay, so for example, you have seen person engaged exclusively in the business of supplying goods and services, both not liable for tax. Agriculturalist, to the extent they supply produce and cultivation of land, person exclusively in the business of goods and services are both wholly exempt from tax. There is specified category of persons notified by the government on GST Council recommendations. So this is basically we have seen various laws related to registration, where registration is required, where exemption limits are there, where irrespective of registration exemption limit, one has to get himself registered, that is compulsory registration. And where registration is not required, all these things you have understood. Having understood this, now we are in the position to practically follow the procedures of registration. Okay, so now we have created a platform. Your knowledge, legal, that means so far as law part is concerned, you have already understood it. Now we'll move to the practical aspect of that. How to go for the registration, we'll be learning in our next class. Okay. If you have any query, you can refer to the recorded video, and you can at the same time you can go to the GST side, read the FAQs, read the procedures, so you'll be able to understand all of them. And be prepared. Next class will be learning about procedures of registration, practical. That will be a practical class we'll be learning. Thank you very much. In case you have any query, you may ask it right now. Any query you have? Hopefully no query. Thank you very much. We'll catch up in your next class.